All right, welcome everyone to episode 12 of the Coaches Collective. I'm Chris Maleo with co-hosts Dan Casey and Derek Perkins. We are excited today to have head coach of Northwestern University, Pat Fitzgerald, on the show. Coach Fitzgerald, welcome.
Thanks, Chris. Great to be on with you, Dan and Derek, and looking forward to having some fun, man.
Yeah. We appreciate you taking out time on a Friday in the off season, and really wanted to get to just dive right in and talk a little bit about you and your career. Obviously, you're having tremendous success. You guys have some of the best facilities in college football. You're in 2 out of the last 3 years, you won the Big Ten West. You played the Big Ten championship. Just recently had 2 first-round draft picks. Just announced a big-time rivalry game in Ireland. I mean, things are rolling for Northwestern football. But that almost didn't happen with you as the head coach. You at one point were working outside of football and really were questioning if, football was going to be the route that you want to go. Can you expand and talk a little bit about that decision and how you've arrived to become the head coach that you are today?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. When I look back, it seems like yesterday, but now it's over 20 years ago that I was done playing football. So, I didn't grow up wanting to coach, man. I grew up wanting to be a player. I wanted to be a great player. So, when I got cut by the Cowboys and then worked out for the New Orleans Saints, this guy named Mike Ditka was the head coach of the Saints. And I played, I think, 2 or 3 preseason games. I get caught, I fly home. I got a answering machine at my parents' house. They tell me we want you to try out for the Saints. So I get back on a plane, go try out for the Saints. Ditka smoking a cigar. They put us through a full NFL combine. I think it was like 100 degrees in New Orleans. I'm beat up from camp. Ditka's like, I think it's time you start using that Northwestern degree. And I was like, oh, man. I'm 10 years old. I fall in love with football. Ditka is the head coach of the Bears, is a Chicagoan. And, that was just a wake-up call, a reality that, the playing days are over. Whether you like it or not, you can keep trying to do this. But this is why you got a great degree from a great school. So I thought I wanted to go down the business road. I definitely had coaching in my blood. I thought it might be at the high school level. Because of the impact my high school coaches had on me outside of my parents. Nobody had a bigger impact on me than my high school football and baseball coaches. And, I couldn't find a job. So long story short, I did sales for about 3 months because the coaching cycle wasn't rolling. And then honestly, Chris, it wasn't a hard decision. It took me about 3 days to figure out pretty dang quick that I was missing the best drug in the world, and that's football. And, got really fortunate. Got a graduate assistant opportunity then that winter at the University of Maryland, and I've kind of been rolling ever since.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think our listeners should know, right? This, you weren't just like, hey, I played college football and I tried out, I was with the Cowboys and then with the Saints. I mean, you were 2-time Big Ten defensive player of the year. You were the only, at that time, you're the only back-to-back winner of the Chuck Bednarik Award and the Bronco Nagurski Award. I think you beat Ray Lewis out for that award. So, and I think also I should let our listeners know that I know a lot of this about you, obviously, because I played for you. I played college football for you. So
you're a wee bit biased, Chris.
Yeah, right.
Let's let your listeners know. I mean,
you only shoved it down my throat every day. I'm just kidding.
No, it's all good.
But you were a tremendous player. You were a tremendous player, and you don't often see that a lot when guys go from kind of that they don't transition very well when they have that much success as a player. You don't see a lot of guys have that kind of success as coaches. Yeah. One of the things I always attribute that to for you is kind of your emotional IQ. I think you have great EQ. You really connect with players and you understand that you're playing chess as a coach, not checkers, and every piece moves differently. Right. Maybe kind of talk a little bit about that and what you've established at NU, the culture, what all the things that you've done, because you took over a program at 33 years old, right? 34? Were you 34?
31. I was 31.
31.
Wow.
Yeah. So I remember, Coach, our team meeting. Coach Walker died, so we should transition here. Where our Coach Walker, our head coach, died. You were the linebackers coach, and you gave an amazing eulogy at his funeral. And they had asked us, a lot of our players, the AD at the time had asked us, a lot of our players, hey, who do you guys want to be the head coach? And I think it was unanimous. The team had selected you to be, to represent us as our head coach. And that first meeting, you stepped in the room and you had a great presence about you. But I also, and I'll say this to you, I'll say this to anyone, I knew at that time, you were going to be a great head coach, but I also was like, man, this guy might not be ready for this right now. And you were and you weren't in some respects, you you've made so many improvements, and you've done that for yourself and your program. And one of the things I was bragging to Derek and Dan about was, I said, Fitz will change who he is before he ever changes the core values of that football program, because that's the type of person he is. So can you talk a little bit about that transition for you, taking over a head college program as a 31-year-old in the summer, a head coach dies, and what you've done from then till now to get Northwestern where it is?
Right. Well, let me go back to when I was a player first. I mean, I was not our best player. I was just a guy who got his name called playing on a great defense. So, back in the 90s, we didn't have replay. We didn't have great camera angles. So I was kind of smart enough to get off the pile last. So the announcer would say, tackle by Fitzgerald. You know what I mean? So now all of a sudden, here goes the folklore. So let's make sure your listeners know I ran 4.82 on pro timing day, and I started trying to do like the worst cartwheels, and the scouts look over at me like, what's wrong with this dude? I'm like, that's the fastest 40 I ever ran in my life. So, but, and I appreciate the kind words, Chris. And I would agree at 31, there's no way I was ready to be the head coach. But, when Walk passed away, nobody can expect that type of tragedy. And, we had to put our focus where it needed to be, as you remember, and that was helping Miss Walker, Miss Tammy Walker, and Jamie and Abby, right. And, Coach's family through, let's call it as it is. I mean, Coach Walk, from Ohio, just was really, truly the apple of the eye of the family. His brother was incredibly successful as high school administrator, but, Randy had a great high school, college coaching career, and then it just is gone in the blink of an eye. So horrible tragedy. And that was focus A, and focus B, Chris, was you guys. Just how can we help you through this? Some guys had opened up a wound of somebody that they had lost early in their lives. Some guys had never gone through tragedy. Some of the guys were, really close with Walk. Some guys were getting to know Walk, and some guys were in the doghouse. So, it was a really dynamic situation. And when Mark Murphy came to see me after Coach Walk's funeral and said, we want you to be our head coach, I just looked at him and said, honestly, you got to give me a night to sit down and talk with Stacy. We just had a child. Right. We're number 2's on the way. Of course, I want to be the head football coach, but the program and the experience of our players means a million times more than what I want for me. That if I'm good enough, that'll happen the right way as I go through this. And so I got my dream job through the worst circumstances you possibly could get. And so honestly, prayed on it that night. Stacey and I woke up the next morning, looked at each other, and she said, go for it, babe. And, they gave me a 5-year contract, but it was really a 3-year deal. And I said, after 3 years, if I don't have this thing going the right way, you won't have to fire me. The program means that much to me. I would just like to go back to be the linebacker coach, and I'll resign. And now as we're going on to year 16, you guys did it, man. I mean, I've had great players. I mean, unbelievably unselfish, team first, servant leader guys that just are absolutely relentless in playing for each other. And then we've had pretty high consistency and continuity with my coaching staff. So, I think for a player, whether you like your coach or not, if you know where he's coming from and you know his values and what he expects you to do, you can operate and get better and improve, right? And so usually what happens is the young players are like, oh, he's so hard on me, I don't like it. Then by the time they get to be a senior, it's like, man, this is going too fast. I love this guy. You kind of lose that as the head coach with 112 players. You extrapolate that over the entire organization. Me, Chris, I try to be a buzzing bee. I try to be as involved and engaged with everybody, everywhere, all over the program. And that's something I try to do relentlessly. But you're right. I was not ready. I think there might be some internet fans that think I'm still not ready, but that's all right.
Always.
We could get a WWE cage match going, and I'll take my chances.
Man, well, Coach, Chris has told us so many stories about playing for you, and I would imagine he was a huge headache for you as a coach. We've been just dealing with him for a couple years now, and we get it. But one of the things that he keeps bringing us back to is just how values aligned you are, and obviously, like, we've been able to observe you more in recent years. And one of the things that really has stood out to us in the past 3 years is you win the Big Ten West, and then you have a down year in 2019, and then you come back this year and pretty much shock the world and win it again. And how do you prevent yourself from panicking? Because I know for myself as a young coach, it's so easy to panic when you have a year that's not up to expectation. How do you stay true to that through the adversity of a tough season?
Well, I'll go back to what I said earlier, kind of about your player coach relationship a little bit. I hope my players say that they know exactly what they're going to get, win or lose with me. I hope they think there's a high level of consistency in the way that I approach what I do. And if I've got that consistency, then that hopefully will permeate through the assistants, through the GAs, quality control, strength staff, AT staff, those touch points that hit the players every day. And each game is a 1-game season. Each team is its entity in and of itself. I love the talking season that we're in right now, kind of like end of the national championship until we get to week 1, where, well, they have this amount of guys coming back. They got this class. They got these transfers. That has zero to do with the chemistry of the squad of the building. So, from a value standpoint, when I was a high school football player, I wrote a book report on this great coach named John Wooden. And, his pyramid of success, all of his great teachings. And I thought I might want to go into coaching, like I said, when I was in college. But, after reading Coach Wooden's kind of more holistic way to look at how you impact and really use your power of influence as a teacher / coach / educator, that really resonated with me. But I've gone around to a lot of high schools, colleges, and you look at all these posters up on a wall, and you ask the assistant coach, like, hey, what does this mean? He's like, oh, that's just coach's stuff. I don't know, whatever. We don't even talk about it, So I didn't want to put Coach Wooden's stuff up on the wall. I really wanted it to be our values, a collective approach. And so after my first year, we did kind of a what you would do in any organization. We did a SWOT analysis. We looked and did a 360 of the program. I had one of my professors was a CEO consultant, and I had him start coming out to spring practice. I don't even know if you know this, Chris, but Professor Don Prentice would come out. He didn't know if the ball was pumped up with air or stuffed with feathers. He didn't care about that. He was looking at how I led, the way the organization ran. How was the leadership within the team, and we really did a holistic look. And one of the things he said to me is, he goes, I have no idea what the values of this program is. So how could you develop leaders? And that's when I had we created our first leadership council, and we studied John Wooden, we studied his books, and then we took, he has 15 building blocks. We took 15, went down to 10, and then we created our own values pyramid called the Wildcat Values. And so the next 14 years after that, when I meet with the leadership council, I still ask those guys, is this still what we value? And 14 years later, it definitely is. So it's a driving force in what we do day to day. It's a driving force in the questions we ask about who the person is in recruiting. Everybody's like, oh, it's so hard to get into Northwestern academically. No, it's not. If you're a good student, you're going to get into school here. All right. Got the #1 graduation rate in the country. We've got a 3.34 GPA. If you're not a good student, we're not going to recruit you. It's not my fault. It's your fault. Do better. Okay. All right. I mean, that is what it is. I don't make those rules. That's made on campus. Right. So I don't think that makes us better than anybody else. It's just who we are. Right. And then, same thing with football. Like, we're a championship level football program, and that's not to be a slight at anybody else, but you have to be a high level football player for us to recruit you. You have to come here and we have to evaluate you that you're going to come in from day one to compete to start. All right. And so that's a high bar to get over. But, my wife, Stacy, and I have been together since I was 15. She could pop on the tape and look at the transcript and be like, this dude's off the charts bright. Man, babe, he could play. So that's not the hard thing. It's the who this person is, what makes him who he is, that we really analyze and evaluate. And it's really important to us. And those 10 values are pretty simple. The 2 cornerstones are both choices that are God-given. The first one's your attitude. And the second one is investment, which we define as consistent hard work over time. Especially Gen Z, man, it's like, I went on Instagram and 50 people followed me. I'm popular. No, you're not. No, you're not. What are you talking about? Right. So they're used to that, instant. That's not investment. It's the grind. It's investing every day, day in and day out, to relentlessly improve. Mm-hmm. You couple with that a great attitude, you got a chance to be successful. And then, character speaks for itself. It's who you are when no one's watching. Trust is something that, again, I think young people today give away. I mean, when I was growing up, you wouldn't give anybody your home address, your home phone number. Now, I mean, it's like it's all over the internet. So, you have to earn that trust. And I talked a lot about that to our coaches, that we're going to give it to our players unequivocally, but we've got to earn it as their coaches. Honesty. We tell our guys what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. In the middle's family, it's being a part of something bigger than yourself, being a servant teammate, servant leader. Respect. That speaks for itself. But I think this is the number one value that's lost in our society today. I mean, we have over 20 states on our roster. We have every race. We have every religion. We have every socioeconomic background. It's an unbelievable opportunity to learn and grow and develop as a young person. But you have to have a backbone of respect and really respect our uniquenesses and differences. And then it's about effort, how you respond. And then at the top is an acronym for WIN. It's about choices. What's important now? So that's our values. That's kind of what we do and how we do it. And like I said, that's how I expect our organization to run every day. Like if I look at our fourth strength coach and he's losing it on somebody, I'm like, hey, coffee cup, what's important now, man? He's like, yeah, coach, I got to chill out here. It was a rough night. My kids were up all night. I'm like, you know what? Our player doesn't really give a rip, and what's happening at home is impacting what you're doing to that player now. Go dab that guy up, go love him up, go talk to him about what's going on. What's happened has happened, and let's move forward together. Get down to that granular, genuine relationships. And now you can really drive and develop people. But I think you got to bring the right guys into the culture. I think I have to have the right staff to uphold the standard of the culture. Yeah. And then if you got it the right way, the locker room runs itself and your older players really drive the standard. And I just got to get the bus there on time and the guys go play their butts off for each other.
Right. Coach, I mean, we talk about it all the time. If you're the profession, it's so uncommon what you've done at a place for 16 years. And most guys, it's like, hey, if you're especially the college game, you've got to have a suitcase ready at all times. And you touched on continuity within your staff, and how do you do that? How do you keep that continuity? Because it's such a uncommon thing, but you've found a way.
Yeah, Derek, you've done it. I mean, I think it's balance. So for some head coaches, I think that's a dirty word. Right. I believe it is the only word that matters. You have to have balance. Like right now we're sitting in May, and you guys were making fun of me earlier, I think, before we got on, but I'm going to play golf today. I've already hit up my recruits for the day. I gave my staff today off because in June, it's going to be the most chaotic June in the history of college football. So, just having the forward thinking to have some balance. There's a better mousetrap. There's a better way to do it. You can be more efficient. When I started as a GA at Maryland, I had to I had to watch and break down all the tape at my desk on paper. I could my GAs and QCs could do that on their phone right now. So, just have a plan, be efficient. I expect everybody in our organization to be pros. So if I have to hold you accountable for you doing your job, you're going to probably get one warning. And then the next time it's going to be probably time for me to tell you it's time to move on. Yeah. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to have balance in your life, but you got to produce. So that's number one. I think recruiting men that have great families, whatever that means, it's unique to everybody, but that understand that college football is a lifestyle. It's not a profession. There's at the bottom of all of our contracts says other duties as assigned. That's right. Like 95% of what we do for a living. So, that's just the reality of this level, and your partner at home has to understand that. So I think that's two. And then I've said it often that I'll get fired as a coach before I get fired as a dad and a husband. Wow. So if there's a baseball game at 3:00 and it's a Thursday and I got to leave at 2:20, then I might need to get in at 5 when my boys are sleeping, get in, get the stuff knocked out. And then, I'm out. And like my coaches don't have to come and tell me like, hey coach, I got to go to the dentist at 11. I don't care. Just do your thing, man. Just get your work done and go from there. And then I think you got to have support from the university. I mean, we've had unbelievable support. This thing has just kept growing and getting better each year. They see the value in the continuity and consistency. We've just tried to really bring the right people in the organization, into the locker room, and then onto the staff. And I think my values, our staff's values, our players' values align with the institution's values. And I think that creates a lot of synergy.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, one of the things that really, stands out to us, I think, it's easy when you talk to guys in the game that, there's a pressure to kind of keep up with the next trend, whether it's recruiting or, there's always kind of the quote unquote cutting edge. And, you just talked a lot about thinking ahead and having vision far beyond kind of just what's next. And that's obviously played out with the way that you guys have built the facilities there at Northwestern. What was the vision process for basically turning Northwestern into, a facilities destination in college football? I mean, beautiful work you guys have done.
Well, thanks. I just talked about a vision. Again, I think there's something special about being at your alma mater.
Yeah.
You just can't. I don't know if I can accurately articulate that. That it just means, it just means so much more, that you really can take a long view, I guess, and because you have a long perspective, I think you can take a long view. And Chris and I both had the unique pleasure of being in the Nicollet Football Center, that probably in 1980 something was really great, but
Right.
in 1993 to 97, it was not where it needed to be. And by the time Chris got here, by the time we were leaving, it was incredibly antiquated. It was inconvenient, and we just didn't have what we truly needed to have the experience, what it should be at a place like Northwestern. So just sat down with our president, our AD, our trustees, and just said, I have a vision that's not just for football, but I think this can impact the entire athletic department. And the fruits of that, from amazing donor families to amazing architects and the amazing construction workers at Wall, everybody that was, from Pepper Construction Wall, everybody that, the iron workers on the scaffolding, putting the spines up of the Ryan Field House in Wilson Field, right in the shores of Lake Michigan, with 20-mile-an-hour winds blowing on the lake. It was a sight to behold. But the Walter Athletics Center, Ryan Field House, Wilson Field, Chapin Ethel Hutchinson Field, and Martin Stadium, where our secondary practice field is unique of a setting and as world-class of a facility as you're going to have. And we have everything we need, football contained, that makes it as efficient as it possibly can, from the minute our guys wake up to the minute they leave the facility to get back to their dorms and or apartments. And that was really the vision of how can we make it more efficient, obviously cutting edge, but we didn't need waterfalls that came out of a wildcat's mouth, and stuff like all that stuff. Like, I was not in that. Chris will tell you, man, I'm from the South Side. You can take the guy out of it, but you can't take the South Side out of the guy in Chicago. That stuff doesn't make a difference. It might be cute for a recruiting trip, but for example, putting, a 40-person cold tub in the football locker room, right? You think about that, but that wasn't just that. Now we have another 40-person cold tub in the athletic training room about 15 yards away that can be used for all of our athletes. Yeah. But when we're in training camp, we can get 80 of our guys through in 10 minutes, right? So you just start really thinking about, if we built one pool that way, it would have been like an Olympic-sized swimming pool, right? So just really trying to think big picture and really using what our guys' day-to-day experience was, how to make it as efficient as we could to maximize the 20 hours in the week that the NCAA gives us, and then be great teammates in the athletic department, and have what we do for football be a catalyst to impact change for all of our other sports. And it's been absolutely phenomenal.
Amazing.
Coach, you've got to give us a good Chris Maleo story. I had to jump in before Chris, but we've got to get one. And we've heard numerous stories, so we've put you on the spot. You got to give us one.
I will tell you this: Chris was my ace host in recruiting.
Amazing.
If I wanted to get a player, all right, I was going to Maleo, because he was kind of a chameleon. He played like every position. So I could put him with the quarterback and he could talk quarterback play. I could put him with a linebacker. He could talk linebacker play. He fancied himself as a world-class holder. I could put him with a specialist.
Elite.
So no, Chris came. Chris is like what you would probably say happens to a lot of guys in college football. Got recruited to play one position. It didn't work. He wanted to play, was unselfish, went over, played another position. He embraced what he had to do to get the job done for school, and kicked its butt. And who are we kidding now? We're all kind of the same way. Unless you're going to an Ivy League school, you're a big time football player. You got to understand how to manage your time. And I thought Chris did a really good job of that. And then on top of it, I thought he was just a great teammate, man. Mm-hmm. I thought he gave everything for his boys, and that's what it's all about. And I wish it would have been. I wish he would have been all Big Ten quarterback like he does. If you ask him, he'd tell you we screwed him, but that's okay. That's. No, but he was awesome to coach, and this is to me, this is like the rewarding part of my job.
Yeah.
Is to have Chris be successful and now have an opportunity to be a part of his world. It's funny, man. Going into year 16. What I thought about year 1 was important to what I know was important in year 16.
Yeah.
It's about seeing your guys down the road end up being successful. So it's an honor to be with you guys, and I'm proud of you, bud.
Listen, you were such an amazing coach and mentor to know not only myself, but so many of us, and you look at back in the relationships that I have with all these guys, and I still keep in touch. I mean, I talk every day with Corey Wooten and Quentin Davey and Frayne and Jason Jackson and all these guys. And we're so invested in the success of Northwestern football, not from a selfish perspective, but because we believe in you and what you're doing and what you're creating for so many kids across the country, the experience that they can have playing college football, because it's unique. And not every kid is able to have what you've created there, unfortunately, because that's what it should be at every single level. And you should love your coach, and you should love the experience, regardless of if you went in like myself, as a quarterback and ended up leaving as a multi-tool player.
Unbelievable holder. You're an unbelievable holder.
Yeah, exactly. But no, listen, I mean, in all seriousness though, like I think it would have been easy for me, had it not been part of the right culture, to have been truthfully just bitching the whole time about like, hey, I didn't get mine and all these other things. But I bought into the vision that you created, right? And I was a part of the program, and I loved my teammates enough that I was able to put my own personal feelings about where my, what I wanted for myself aside, and say, like, what can I do to help this program accelerate and get to the next level? What can I do to help us win football games, et cetera? And, guys respect that, coaches respect that. And, when there's a level of mutual respect with one another, that's where organizations, teams, they elevate. And you've done such a great job of that. And, we're all grateful for it. But I mean,
thank you. But I will tell you, we got a long way to go. I mean, we're not the finished product. And I think when I end up taking the whistle off and passing the baton to the next guy here at Northwestern, I still don't think I'll be finished. I just, every generation, every player, it's a unique individual relationship that you have to develop. And I've got to have the right job done by our assistant coaches. And I just think of every year, I guess I'd say the same thing, but it's getting increasingly more difficult. And that's something that we've got to really work hard as coaches, especially with this generation, in my opinion, is taking the time not to talk about X's and O's, okay? But really, truly diving in, being vulnerable, being transparent, being able to communicate with a generation that really, a lot of them only know how to talk with their cell phone.
Yep.
And so how do we do that? You got to be a great listener. You've got to be understanding and get to where they're at to help them understand, because I think as big of an issue that we have right now with coaching is there's an age discrepancy here, and not in a negative way, but I really think because of the internet, because of the access to information, this generation needs coaches less than we think they need us, because they go on YouTube or Instagram and watch how to throw a ball or how to rush a quarterback and all that. And that's all good, but the phone's not going to hug you when things get hard. The phone's not going to give you a letter recommendation. The phone's not going to be there when you lose a parent or a sibling or a friend. They're not going to be there when you have an issue and you need someone, when everybody else is coming down on you, to be there, to be that shoulder and say, I know this is not where we want to be right now, but we're going to get through it together. You have to have that trust built. And I just think right now that's the challenge for all of us as coaches. And it's a challenge for us as coaches on that aspect too, because, Derek, you were saying it earlier, you're like with so many guys that have a bag packed. I had a good friend of mine once tell me, don't mess with happy. Happy's earned. And if you're happy, then make sure you keep staying happy. And that's, that's kind of the way I've looked at it. I've got a happy wife, so I've got a happy life. My boys get to, been in the same schools. I mean, so that's the selfish part of my life, right? Then I look at where I'm at with my role. I couldn't be more ecstatic about the young men I get to coach. I mean, Chris, I would say there's some guys that aren't happy. I get that. We've got to do a better job for them, but that relationship's also 50-50, right? So, we just got to keep digging, keep working, keep being relentless and bringing that guy along, because every player can have an impact. Every player can have a role, but one interaction with the coach, you can ruin everything for a player. So understand that power of influence and really work hard to have a genuine relationship. That doesn't mean you don't have a high standard, a high set of expectations. You don't hold them accountable, all that. It's different. I mean, I think guys will run through a wall for you when they really know that you care about them. And it's the old coaches, and they don't care about how much you know. They know about how much you care, right? And that's no more evident, in my opinion, than right here, right now.
Yeah. Well, Coach, it's no secret with the amount of success you guys have had that, you know, over the years, you've been sought after by a lot of different places and a lot of different teams, and you've decided to make a conscious decision to say no, but maybe more importantly, say yes to Northwestern.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go through that decision-making process? I think a lot of young coaches we talk to, a lot of times they're in the midst of making decisions. I loved what you said about don't mess with happy, but how do you approach those decisions of, you know, staying aligned with your values through opportunities that present themselves?
Well, I think I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't. Number one.
Yeah.
And so I you know, again, it's about being aligned and having everybody in the same direction, doing the same thing. And that's, you know, our trustees, our administration, our president, our AD, myself, and then everybody in the organization being aligned. And, you know, for the last 15 years, the alignment has been as good as anywhere in the country. And I think that's why, you know, we've put ourselves in position to compete for championships. You know, frankly, Dan, I haven't gotten the job done yet. I mean, I don't aspire to be a Big Ten West champion.
Totally. Yeah.
I didn't go home after the Citrus Bowl championship like, oh yeah, Margaritaville, the job's done. You know, I mean, and even if we had the privilege to play, you know, Clemson instead of Ohio State, and then go play you know, Alabama and have like this magical run and win it, I'm still not going to say it's all over, because the minute you walk in that locker room, Chris knows my story, it's a funeral and a birth.
Yeah.
It's a funeral that team, and it's a birth of a new team. And so, you know, people say to me all the time, man, don't you get bored? Aren't you, like, you know, tired of it? I'm like, no, man, every year is new. Every day is a new and exciting challenge. And as long as that alignment's in the right place, then I can see myself being here until, you know, however long they want me. Am I going to be Joe Paterno and be 75 coaching football? I will tell you unequivocally, absolutely not. No. I promise you that, because number one, I think this is a young guy's profession. I think relatability is really important. I still think I'm a pretty young guy at 46. You know, I've got a little bit of a runway here with the contract. And if I look down towards the end at 56, I still think I'm a pretty young guy as a head coach. But, you know, 10 years after that, you know, you know, I mean, when I think about my grandma at 70, you know, she had never driven a car. So I'm kind of projected out a few years here. And again, I think that's a service to the players, right? And a service to the program. You have to be, as a leader, willing to be egoless. We all have egos, but you have to think of the program and the players beyond you. And so I think I'll know. I think there'll be a certain point when I know. But Dan, I'll be frank with you, that alignment's got to be in place.
Yeah.
And I think earlier, Derek, you know, you said guys have to have their bags packed.
Right.
I would venture to guess, in your personal experience, you can look at and point to, you know, the misalignment of the organization on why things didn't work. Mm-hmm. And that's, as long as that's in place, you have no one to blame besides yourself if it doesn't work. And so that's why I think it's been so good here.
That's amazing.
Well, Coach, last question for you, because we know you got to go spray it all over a golf course here soon. So,
listen, I'm the #1 scrambler, 19-hole player in the country. All right, so if you ever want to play golf with me, you better have two things ready to go. All right, you better have time, because we're going to play pretty good 4-hour round. We're going to see a lot of the course, and then you better be ready for the 19th hole. All right, and if you're not ready for the 19th hole, I have an Uber ride. You got a problem. So. All right.
I just want you to know I start on the 19th hole, but anyway. Listen, one of the things that I admire most about you is, and we touched a little bit upon it, is, you know, you're a family man first, and you talked about this. I remember we were playing a game at Hawaii. I was actually telling these guys anecdotally when Jack was born. And a lot of coaches, you know, they've made the mistake, I think, of missing the birth of their kids, and you were present. You were there. You came late to that game. I think that kind of exemplifies the type of father you are, and your father first, your husband first, all those things. just kind of touch upon this for our listeners, because this is like so important. This is something that we really try to drive home, is like, hey, you're not a football coach first. You're a parent first. You're a father first. You're a husband first. Talk about what that has done for you as a person, and then how it's impacted you as a coach.
Well, yeah, thanks for that was a great memory there, Chris. No doubt about it. But that credit goes to Coach Walker. We had Jack at 4:00 in the morning, I think on a Wednesday, and at 7:00 we were leaving the Nicollet Football Center to go to O'Hare to fly to Hawaii. And he's like, "What are you doing here? Go back with Stacy and Jack." So I mean, that credit goes to Walk too. I mean, he was the best. Yeah. But it goes back to what I said about balance. Let me talk to the assistant coaches that may be listening to this first. Mm-hmm. The grass isn't greener, man. I mean, $5 grand, 10 grand, 15 grand, going from an assistant to a coordinator. I get all the professional development. I get the climbing the ladder. If I were to ever become a coaching consultant, the laundry list of questions I would ask the head coach on the interview, because like when I interview guys, I'll have my questions, and then I'll get to the end and I'll be like, all right, Dan, Chris, Derek, what questions do you have for me? And more times than not, I'll get nothing, coach, I'm good. That's kind of a red flag to me. Like, you're going to move your family. You're going to come here and trust me, and you have no questions for me right now. Like that doesn't show great preparation for the opportunity. And, I tell my young coaches all the time. I just had a couple of guys get jobs. One of my voluntary interns just got a GA job. And he asked me, he's like, "Coach, what can I do better?" I go, "You got one mouth and two ears. All right. You need to listen, you need to learn, but you also need to advocate for yourself. And you need to make sure that you understand what you don't know and ask questions. Some people today don't like it in a big group, so go privately, all these things." So I'm talking through all this advice to them. But for young coaches looking to take another job, I'd interview the head coach. I'd interview the coach that left, and I would understand exactly what it's going to be like to be on that staff. And because the grass isn't greener, you could be there for 2 weeks, and all of a sudden the guy you thought you're going to work for, you got a ball and chain to your desk, and you're just sitting there because that's, the coach gets mad if you're not punching the clock. Is that the life we want to live? Go ahead. That's your world. Go ahead. I don't want to live that way. I don't want to be married to my desk. I want to be married to my wife.
Amen.
I don't want to be developing butt cheeks in my chair. I want to be putting butt cheeks in, the first base line, watching my son Brendan get a double. And, the other dad's like, "Oh, he's great." I was like, "Yeah, I should have run a little harder." I mean, like, those are, because I think it makes you a better coach. You only can be mentally and physically in one place. And if you're trying to split hairs and you're trying to, you can't please everybody all the time. And I get it as the leader again. And, I'd be a little leery of empty nest head coaches. If I was a young assistant coach, I'd be a little leery. I'd ask the head coach, "So coach, what do you do in the off season?" "Well, I just sit here and I watch tape all day." "Like, what tape?" "Well, I watch, I study an NFL team every day." "Cool. Do I have to sit there and watch you study it? Or like, can I do my job and go home?" Like, I would ask those direct questions, and the coach may not like it and he may not hire you, but you know what? You knew it wasn't the right job. Yeah. And so, and people say, "Well, you can say that, Fitz, you're a head coach, you've been doing it 16 years. Yeah, I can. You earn happy, and I'm happy. And that's how if any one of my assistant coaches became head coaches, like Adam Cushing is right now at Eastern Illinois, Garrick McGee has been. I mean, I've got a bunch of head coach candidates on my staff. Mike Dunbar, who Chris played for, was a head coach. Great guys that I've been around. Randy was that way. Gary Barnett was that way. You can win at a high level by doing it that way, but you've got to be really consistent, because then I think, that's how you get the consistency with your coaches.
That's right.
Well, Coach, we're grateful for you, man. Thank you so much for this interview, but more importantly, thank you for what you're doing for college football, because obviously we led with this. I have bias, but you're doing it the right way. You're doing it the right way for coaches. You're doing it the right way for players. Thank you on a personal level for what you've done for me in my life now as a coach, as a husband, as a father. I appreciate you. I love you very much. And I'm grateful for all the things that you've done and going to continue to do for so many people.
Well, thanks, Chris, for the kind words, but it's about this much me. And you know how much about having great players, great guys, and a staff that supports them. So like in the mid 90s, I'm just still getting off the pile last and get my name on. That's all I'm going to say.
There you go. Yeah. Well,
appreciate
Coach,
you guys,
man.
So
much.
have a great
Coach.
summer, and 99 days till the kickoff of college football. But
Let's
who's
get it
counting,
going.
all right?
Let's get it
Appreciate
going.
you guys. Go Cats. All right.
Have a
Go
good
Cats.
one.
Appreciate it,
Thanks,
Coach.
Coach.